Hello, my name is Ajmal Hafiz, and I will be your instructor for the course called Price Strategy and Sales. So, this course has been divided into two parts. Part 1 covers the price strategy, and part 2 covers the sales aspects. So, let's begin with the price strategy. So, what is the price? A price is a signal of the value consumers expect to receive in a product or service. It is also the amount of money consumers pay in order to get the ownership of the product. In other words, to buy it. So, here is the rule all consumers use when buying something. So, if they perceive the value of the product is higher than the price, then they will buy your product. And if they perceive the value of your product is equal to the price, then they may buy your product. And if they perceive the value is less than the price, then they will not buy your product. So, determining how to price your product or service is one challenge. But what about the way consumers perceive your prices? When consumers interact with your pricing models, they form certain impressions that are referred to as price image. So, it is helpful to be able to answer the question that what is your price image? Picture in your head the most expensive grocery store in Norway. For most of us, the image will be many, right? Not only the product offering is important, but the entire consumer experience plays a central role as well. So, pricing is more than just managing the actual cost of your customers. So, you must manage all the mental association customers are making with regards to your pricing. And keep in mind that once your customers have made mental models, it is hard to shake them. That is why many likely won't shake high price image, even if it is starting to be competitively priced with other retailers. So, as you can see, the price image is just as important as the actual pricing. So, price is what you pay and value is what you get. I love this quote because it says everything about this entire pricing strategy that we are going to talk about today, which is how to create value in your pricing strategy so that you can get higher profits, higher margins, which are really important. So the more the value you create, the higher the price can be. Hence, the higher your margins can be and the more profit that actually flows to the bottom line. I want you to get familiar with some of the things that impact your pricing strategy because we are going to use these throughout this entire lecture of pricing strategy. So the first thing is like margin. We have to know our margins. We have to know what our product costs, each unit we generate, each service we provide. Very important. So we have to understand our competition. We have to understand our market as well. How unique is your product or service? How scarce is your product or service out there in the market? The more the scarce the product or service is, the more you can charge potentially, right? And also we need to look at what customers will spend, their spending behavior. What are they willing to spend? What is the perceived value that they're actually going to get from that product or service? Are they reducing risks by using your product or service? Or maybe your product or service creates more safety for them overall. So think about what value you are creating for them. Hey, the rule is that If you can create more value in your product or service, the more the perceived value, that is something meaningful to the consumers or customers, the higher the price they are going to pay for that product or service, the more the margin for you, and a lot more flexibility in your overall pricing strategy. Your pricing strategy must be consistent with all the other strategies that are in your business plan and that you are executing in your business. And I call this internal consistency, where you are actually looking and you are looking everything is consistent throughout your business. That is what we want, right? Consistency. And what we don't want, or what we want to avoid, is internal inconsistency, where the strategy does not line up with the pricing strategy, right? So your other strategies, such as positioning, branding, let's say that you have a premium product that you are offering it for lower price, that is internal inconsistent. So they don't match up with your customer mind, because it is expensive but you are selling it on discount. So you basically communicate your product has great value yet it is cheap. So there is a big question mark in your offering there, right? And that is what we want not to happen, for example. So the next strategy is branding. And so I got a high-end brand like Hermes, but it is on sale, it is on discount. In fact, Hermes, just like Four Seasons, never goes on sale. So there is never a discount. In fact, our Four Seasons actually charges the same prices throughout the year. So which is very interesting for the hotel industry as well. They are very unique in a way that they do not, because there is never anything on sale, right? So the only thing that Four Seasons will give you is maybe a night free if you stay 4 or 5 nights. So that is their vision of the sales, or the version of the sales, because they want to make sure that the branding is consistent throughout their brilliant strategies. That is their version of sales, right? Because they want to make sure that their branding is consistent throughout brilliant strategy. So the competition is another factor, right? So you have got a lot of competition, and your competition is changing or charging in a certain range, and all of the sudden your price is double or triple. That is an internal inconsistency as well, right? Because nobody is going to buy you, especially when there is a lot of differentiation. So you are going to need to think up a new strategy for that, right? And finally, target market. Target market, where you got a low-end demographic for a target market, and you are trying to charge high price again. That is internal inconsistency that exists. So what I want you to make sure that you check your pricing strategy against all the other strategies in your business plan to make sure they are consistent. All right, so let's take a look at some pricing models that you can use out there and apply to your business. So there are 3 basic pricing models that I want to introduce to you. The first one is cost-based pricing. Cost-based pricing simply says that there is a normal margin that everybody in the industry or everyone in that product segment operates on. So basically it is just cost plus certain margins equal to what your profit is going to be. The next one is market-based pricing. Market-based pricing says that you are going to take a look at competition. We are going to see the general range of pricing that the competition is charging, right? Your competitor prices. you are going to fall somewhere within that range, right? It can be lower end, it can be higher end, or maybe somewhere in the middle. But you do have to be within that range, right? Now the third one, the one that I love the most, is value-based pricing. Value-based pricing basically says that you are going to price based on what customer is willing to pay. So you have the most control over this, right? This is also the most profitable pricing model as well. So this is the one we are going to be focused on, but actually I want really to understand all three of them. You might be forced to use one of the model just because the industry does, or the certain product or services that you are offering requires such kind of model that is maybe have more importance versus the others. So we are going to take a look at some of the characteristics of these different pricing models. So the cost-based pricing. Cost-based pricing model is that it tends to be where there is a lot of competition in the marketplaces and little differentiation. Generally speaking, these are commodity-based products, right? So you do not have a lot of wiggle. There is not a lot of imagination within the cost-based pricing model that you can come up with. So unless you can differentiate, which we will talk about later. Now in market-based pricing, you can get a little bit more flexibility. You can bring in more elements. You can get an opportunity to differentiate more, but you are still operate, like I said, within the range of adaptability or acceptability. So now, generally speaking, there is a decent amount of competition in this particular market. When we look at market-based pricing, a lot of times it is seasonal fluctuations. It goes down, and also sometimes we see there is a movement in prices based on different potential circumstances in certain industries, right? So that is market-based pricing. So keep in mind, you do not have to use market-based pricing if you are in a service business, but generally they fall under the category. So the value-based pricing says it is really hard to compare. It is hard to compare products. They tend to be more unique. The offerings tend to be more unique. It tends to be bundle in a package nicely, so you can add things to another thing. You add on something, all of a sudden, for example, you get a new product or service that looks different than everybody else, right? So there is a lot of differentiation in value-based pricing. So we are going to look at some of the different characteristics and what are these applies best to your business in upcoming lessons. Let me give you some additional examples on each of the categories. So for cost-based pricing, product like shampoo, furniture, home cleaning, even yogurt might fall into this category for cost-based pricing. So now for market-based pricing, other examples could be Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Uber, hotels, gas and hotels. Gas and hotels are kind of interesting because they have that kind of fluctuations in price where you can go in a hotel in New York, for example, in January, and the cost is, for example, $199. For that exact same room, if you go in June during US Open, when the weather is nice, it is, for example, $600. And when you go in a New Year's Eve, it might be the price like $1,000. But the entire market moves the same pricing strategy, and it does not meant that the price is necessarily set in the market-based pricing. So pretty interesting, right? Then the final would be the value-based pricing. and a couple of things that they're like medicine, high restaurant, Rolex watches, softwares, products, for example, all kind of apps fall generally into this cost-based pricing category, and of course beauty products, because there is a lot of differentiation and it is hard to compare different beauty products that are out there, and so they also fall under the category of value-based pricing. Some of the things that I want to make sure that you can understand from going through these examples is that number one is the price sensitivity of your strategy, for example, to your customers. And if your customers have low sensitivity to the price, that essentially says you have large degree or low flexibility in how you charge the prices, which varies. So they have high sensitivity to it, other have maybe low sensitivity to it in terms of what pricing you are actually charging, right? So it is also going to be help in determining what price model is, and so this is going to be whether we would go for cost base, whether we should go for market base, whether we should go for value base, depending on their sensitivity to the pricing, right? And also we need to understand how much flexibility do we want in order to differentiate our pricing strategy even within those models as well. So flexibility and sensitivity from the consumer sides both are important. If you are going to set pricing, first of all, test and test again. This is the best tip that I can give you, and this will help you to optimize the right price level. So you are testing your pricing, and I want you to look at two things. One is either setting a slightly higher price or setting a slightly lower price. There are cause and effects of relationships that goes here and there. If you are setting higher prices, you are actually have less sales. Maybe the first thing you think of, right? Sacrifice some sales, some small incremental level of sales to actually get more overall money and more profit overall, pick up more market share, and you pick up more of overall sales, right? So when you lower the price, you basically have more sales. When you increase the price, you have less sales. So depending on whether you want to capture the new market share or you want to, and there is a way that you can maximize the margin and that you are getting and the sales level at the same time you can increase. So I want to wrap up with some common mistakes that I see entrepreneurs are making all over the time. First thing is that, as I said before, don't just guess your price. Just guessing the price is the biggest mistake that we make, because we have given you a ton of tools to be able to optimize your price, and you should not guess. The other one is not knowing your margins, right? And you don't know your direct margins, you will be thrown out. So make sure you don't make that mistakes. So know your margins. Let's say that you have 20 to 30% margin, which are most likely too low, even in your industry. That may be in reality or a big red flag to say I better not start that business. I better hold back, right? Because margin is too low. So consider that. Next mistake that I actually see as well, which I don't quite understand why people do this, but forgetting to add value to your product or service. And then finally, getting your price too high. You set your price too high that you are outside of the acceptable range. You are outside and people just ignore because you are so far from their competition. So let's make sure that you don't make any of these mistakes. You have given all the other tools in this exercise to figure out your optimal pricing. This is going to lead you the success in the business, and this is going to lead you maximum profitability for your business. Next, we are going to continue with the academic insight on the pricing strategy. Stay with us. Now let's take a look at some academics insight about pricing strategy. The research on pricing strategy is still quite new and emerging. So there is a lot that we don't know yet. For example, pricing strategies in digital marketplaces, right? However, a number of key insights are starting to emerge, and I would like to discuss 6 particular studies in this lecture. So the first article is from Choudhury and Holbrook. It was published in 2001 in Journal of Marketing. In this article, the authors seeks to provide better understanding of brand trust, brand affect, brand loyalty, and brand performance. So, what is the brand trust? Of course, there are many definitions, but according to Choudhury and Holbrook, brand trust is a willingness of the average consumers to rely on the ability of the brand to perform its stated function. When customers are faced with certain uncertainties or crisis situations, they will gravitate towards the brand they trust, right? The challenge with the marketplace or marketing during crisis is that you have to focus on short-term changes that brings to long-term value. For example, in COVID-19 situation, gaming the system now will not create the long-term value. Everything from the way you treat your employees to the way you manage your customer relationship is under scrutiny in times of crisis. So it is easy to forcing suppliers to give you discounts and so on. All of these business moves leads to rude awakening later, right? None of its strategy is creating trust or creating value. So the brand will be blacklisted who fall to rise to the challenge, right? And instead choose to greed. You will win the marketing by building trust in the time of crisis. Choudhury and Holbrook define brand affect as brand potential to elicit a positive emotional response in an average consumer as a result of its use. In other words, it can be described as consumers' emotional response towards brands in consequences of having an experience with the brand. For example, the brand makes me happy is one way you can understand this concept. Another important concept that you see from this article is brand performance. Brand performance takes time and money, and if done correctly, you will have tremendous assets to show for it. But brand performance needs to be measured to make sure you are getting the right return on the assets. So here is how you measure it. First, what is the basic awareness of the brand, right? You need to conduct market research to measure the percentage of people that recognize this brand when they're shown with the logo or when they hear the brand name, for example. You also want to measure how well the target audience understand the brand, right? Can they tell, for example, what the brand stands for? What do they associate the brand with? And how closely does that match with the core promises and the core brand drivers? And finally, you want to measure how the brand creates customer loyalty. A very important concept. For this, you measure customer retention rates or repeat purchases, or you might measure how likely they are to recommend this brand to others, for example. The key is to make sure that the brand is not losing relevance. Is it the delivery benefit that are still important to this customer? Or perhaps brand lacks differentiation from competitive brands? Or finally, it could be a problem with consistency in how the brand is communicated in all channels. You should measure internal indicators such as the clarity that employees have about the brand and its value and positioning in the market. How well do your employees understand the target audience, customers' insights, and the brand drivers? And be sure to measure the commitment of your company has to the brand and the support it gets. Are the key individuals devoting enough time to it versus other brands? And finally, try to assess how well protected the brand is. Hey, you have invested a lot of time, effort in creating brands and managing the brand, and so it is essential that you keep others from diluting it. So now let's look at the brand loyalty. Many will say there is no such thing as customer or brand loyalty. Loyalty is dead, but it is not exactly true. Whether they are multinational corporations, internet startups, family-owned businesses, or anything in between, many organizations have learned how to manage their customers and keep them coming back again and again. But why is it so important? Well, it is rather simple. It is just important because acquiring a customer is a single most expensive thing in business. Think about it. Without customer, there is no business. And yet the most organizations get a customer and well, they kind of forget about them. The term customer loyalty can be rather ambiguous. What does customer loyalty mean to you? When I ask a group of audience this question, I get a lot of different answers. But the most people say something like, my customer come back, my customer choose me over the competition. Even though the competitor is cheaper, they continue to pick me. They understand we offer more than just a commodity, and a whole bunch of other answers. To me, loyalty is simply a feeling, and it is our efforts that create that feeling. Our efforts create the result. Without deploying effective loyalty strategies, either accidentally or purposefully, you cannot have loyalty. Loyalty is a feeling, the emotion that you made for that particular brand, that bonding that customer have towards you and your business. Loyal customers are often more forgiving to your mistakes in the delivery of product and services. But if you don't have the right efforts in place, it is almost impossible to create that feeling. Now let's take a look at tested relationship among brand trust, brand affect, and brand performance outcomes, with an emphasis on understanding the linking role played by the brand loyalty. The results they found were quite interesting. In nutshell, the results indicates that when the product and brand level variables are controlled for, trust and brand affect combined the determined purchase loyalty and attitudinal loyalty. Purchase loyalty in turn leads to a greater market share, and attitudinal loyalty leads to a greater relative prices to the brand. Now let's take a look at some academics' insight on the relationship between pricing strategy and retail strategy. Consider this: every day gazillions of the product and services are bought and sold, and not one of those product or services has been ever sold without the involvement of people like you and me. So you are the key factors in determining if and how the retail business will survive or thrive. So this is all rides on the positive relationship between you can build with your customers. In this lesson, we will understand how to build these relationships through effective pricing strategy and store format strategy. By identifying the ways to enhance the customer store choices through entrepreneurial, effective retail strategy choice is the key. So we will also cover all of the foundational bases to get your sales steady and make your customers happy. So the pricing strategy, one of the most powerful and effective strategic tool, is in retailing. Let's talk about brief description about what high-low prices entails. So high-low prices involves setting prices higher than everyday low pricing stores, but having special sales where the prices are lower than competitor prices. For example, when we might in a particular week choose heavily discounted specific items within our stores, and their focus really is to try and drive traffic to the store without hoping that people will purchase other items. So in this increasingly traffic that we see are becoming focused in a particular pricing strategy. Pricing strategies are likely to be influenced by upstream, for example, manufacturer, brand categories, etc., and downstream by the customer factors, for example. And the other interesting strategy related to pricing is store format strategy. The role of the store format has changed with the customer increasingly shifting their spending online, and it increases after the COVID-19. It is also not enough for the physical store to be just a transactional value or venue. Instead, it is now must serve as brand building environment. So digital and physical store is now the trend. Most of the stores are converting into digital. So in order to differentiate your physical store, you have to offer certain unique. The format strategy should be built heavily by informed consumers' insight, and retailers should therefore take into consideration each customer touchpoint and assess the customer's emotional and experiential state of journey, which the customer needs and desires includes in, and what are the reasons that customer actually visit the stores. When customers are in the stores, how do they navigate to the aisles and interact with the displays? What are the barriers, physical or otherwise, do they encounter? What are the biggest pain points they might have? The goal should be to give customers, for example, a memorable or delightful experience while they shop. So the store characteristics may be helpful in determining customer choice, shopping behavior. Research, for example, on retailer environment and atmosphere builds on environmental psychologies to determine or to demonstrate the design, social setting, how you provide them service, checkout, personal or self-service checkout becoming important. You see many such type of services in retail stores, for example, in on the airports, on the hotels, restaurants, and so forth. It is convenience, and the perception of the service convenience actually is the way you differentiate. Service-seeking customers tends to shop at, for example, high-low stores rather than everyday low prices. Interestingly, cherry pickers who search out deals at any stores offer them preferably promotion high-low stores and the purchase small baskets with lower average cost. The attractiveness of the retail outlet is proportional to the population of the surrounding area, and such population density, income, distance from the store, for example, other demographic variable of interest are important when it comes to choosing the format of the stores versus the pricing strategy. So many other segmentation variables that could be important to take into consideration when you make pricing strategy and store format strategy. So let's look at the relationship among the variables. Relationship among pricing strategy, store format, and the retail strategy choice emphasize on understanding the customer choice of the stores. The results indicates that as the service level increases, the retailer prefer to choose or use high-low versus everyday low pricing. They also found that the service level increases, retailer prefers supermarket format rather than supercenter format. So as the service level increases, the retailers prefers to supermarket format rather than supercenter format. One of the key takeaways for this article is that price and format strategy work better when they both are combined. Now let's look at the really interesting concept called pay what you want strategy. Pricing is one of the most important strategy, as we understood. So the pricing is the moment of the truth. All the marketing comes into focus in the pricing decision. As illustrated by this quote from Thomas Nagel, picking the right price is a very important part in the firm's marketing strategy. The pricing is too high, a firm will lose the potential sales. If the price is too low, it loses the potential revenue. Thus, the key is to find the right pricing or the optimal pricing. And the problem is that what is just right for you may not be right high for others and low for me, right? So allowing pricing to vary according to the value that the product provides to various potential customers makes a lot of sense. Now, firms try to do this in a number of different ways. For example, in the US, movie theaters typically offer discounts to demographic groups traditionally have lower incomes. So discount for people are the groups that have lower incomes, such as students and senior citizens. So this approach is called price segmentation. So this is very commonly employed pricing strategy. The setting of these different pricing segment has been usually determined by the firms rather than by the customers. For example, many local grocery stores offer discounts on products. These products are maybe close to the expiry dates, right? However, in recent years, a few firms have been experimenting with the ideas of allowing customers or to segment them by letting them name their own price. This strategy is quickly gaining a popularity and being called pay what you want. Although this pricing strategy has been employed in physical stores and it is ideally suited for digital marketing environment. I'll share you why. Now let's take a look at some examples. First of all, Radiohead. Way back in 2007, the British rock band Radiohead offered its new album using this pay what you want strategy. Another example comes from the online retailers headsets.com. In recent years, this retailer has experimented with pay what you want strategy as a means of rewarding customers' loyalty. For nearly all of its customers paid the suggested price or close to it, this article says. According to its CEO, this approach has resulted in 30% increase in return on investment. Now there are lots of interesting issues around surrounding pay what you want strategy, In this lecture, I want to focus three specific issues. First of all, do people actually pay when they don't have to? And this is really a good question, right? Now, according to the standard economic thoughts, customers are seeking to maximize the utility, and you may remember this from your economic class. So, from the strict economic perspective, pay what you want strategy seems rather foolish, since economic actors would simply take product without paying anything for it. However, in reality, many people, including you, are not just self-interest economic actors, but you are and we are also social beings who are governed by the norms of honesty and fairness. So, while some of you may behave as economists, as suggested, and many of people may not behave like that. Pay What You Want restaurant in Vienna found that 99% paid something for the food that they ate. Second, how can a firm make money by giving its product away for free? Another really good question. Clearly, a firm can't make money or stay in business if it keeps giving its product away for free. This simply is not working because many people will pay something for the product even under a pay what you want strategy. Review had found that some people actually paid more than they would in typical pricing condition when they were asked to name their own price. Also, because pay what you want strategy is novel and newsworthy, firms often get a lot of attention when they employ such approach. This ad attention results in increased traffic and higher degree of customers volume. The third is, as we discuss shortly, the emerging economic research in this area suggests that a pay what you want strategy is more likely to be successful if it was implemented for the limited duration. Available for only small subsets of the firm product offering are limited to certain sets of buyers. Also, the most of the success factors as are the success example for this strategy have employed pay what you want on rather limited basis. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the academics' insight about pay what you want. The research on pay what you want is still quite new and emerging, so there is a lot that you don't know yet about this new pricing strategy. However, number of the key insights are starting to emerge. I'd like to discuss three particular studies. The first is the Kim and colleagues was published in 2009 in the Journal of Marketing. This study was conducted by a group of scholars in Germany and was the first academic study on pay what you want. In addition to introducing this concept and explaining how it works, this article contains a series of field experiments in which the researcher convinced three different businesses, two restaurants and one movie theater to employ pay what you want for the period of, for example, certain time. They then studied the behavior of our 600 customers across three different businesses. The results they found were quite interesting. First of all, they discovered that everyone, all of their customers paid something. Nobody asked to get product for free. Nobody. On average, for example, the price they paid were about 15% lower than the price typically they charge by the various businesses. However, the average volume of the sales during the pay what you want period was about 10% higher. So this price went down, but quantity went up. When you add it all up, in total, the strategy resulted in higher than the average return for both restaurants, but lower revenues for the movie theater. In total, this article provides clear evidence to pay what you want strategy may actually be profitable under certain conditions. In this more recent study, a group of international scholars examined the timing of pay what you want pricing strategy, and these scholars conducted a series of studies to understand the effectiveness of this pricing strategy under different timing conditions. Specifically, they asked one set of customers to name their pricing before receiving a product, and second set of customer to name their price after they receiving the product. The research found that the customer paid more after they received the product or service compared to when they received it before. For example, they found that customers were willing to pay an average of 5.2 pound before they saw the photo of the product, but 6.92 pound after seeing their photos. So the findings suggest that tendency to pay more after seeing the product is maybe due to uncertainty, customer uncertainty, or because they cannot see the product, they are certain about the quality and not sure what they will be getting. So they will pay more once they have more information. This makes a lot of sense, right? Now let's take a look at third study, which examines the effectiveness of pay what you want pricing strategy under different reference price conditions, minimum, maximum, and suggested pricing. The result shows that less price sensitive customers are high internal reference priced customers. Allowing customers freedom to choose their own price potentially results in them paying much more than the firm anticipated. Because maximum price likely creates upward pressure for the most customers, those internal reference price are below in the minimum price, and downward pressure on those customers who internal reference price seems they have the greater minimum price. Now let's take a look at practical recommendations on this concept can be put into practice. First of all, set reference price as we discussed earlier. Most of the customers have reference price in mind and evaluating the potential purchase. This reference price effect can also be employed in pay what you want strategy, and one way to do this would be to clearly display the price of the comparable item. For example, if the firm offers pay what you want pricing for vitamin C, you can announce it this next to the price, a posted price for example, vitamin D, since the most people want to think themselves as a fair and honest, right? The setting of the reference price should decrease the temptation to pay little or nothing for the product that they employ in pay what you want strategy. Second is focus on the marginal cost. Although the most customer will likely to pay something, even though when they can name their own price, this is risky strategy. So pay what you want is best employed for the product that have very low marginal cost. This is especially attractive for the digital goods like music, text, and videos. For these types of products, each conditional unit has a very low marginal cost, probably close to zero. So the third and finally, use charity appeals. Both academic research and practical experience indicates that pay what you want strategy is more likely to be successful if the seller announces that some or all of the proceeds will be donated to charity. This sends a signal that seller is generous in nature, which in turn will encourage customers to exhibit generosity and be more likely to pay a higher price. For example, Wikipedia encourages to pay what you want by comparing itself to a public library. Well, that is pay what you want for you. I hope you have enjoyed this new concept, and I look forward to seeing you what you think about it in our class discussions. The last methods of pricing that we will examine today is a method of advanced pricing, and it's called bundling. Bundling is a situation where firm sells distinct goods together for package price, or bundling is when two or more different products are combined and offered together as a package. Cable television channels are bundled. A computer and monitors are bundled, sometimes sold together. Guitar and amplifiers are sometimes sold together. Bundling requires to have different types of consumers. If you do not have different types of consumers, you cannot identify types. Then this meant of bundling will not make a difference. So you do not have any reasons to bundle if you do not have different types of consumers. Bundling will give you a price advantages in one specific condition. And be very careful here because this is also a little tricky. But if you are careful and get it right, you will be able to understand everything afterwards. Bundling gives you a pricing advantage, as I said, only when the demands of different types are negatively correlated. What does this means exactly, negative correlated? This means that sometimes customers are willing to pay more for one product of the bundle, and some other customers are willing to pay more for the other product in the bundle. So you have two different products that you bundle them together, and that group wants to pay more for the one product and the other group wants to pay more for the other product. So this is what we call here negative correlation of demand curves of the two groups. So now let's take a look at one example which will make it clear. We, for example, have William, who was interested in taking dancing lessons and other two different dances that they are, let's say, tango and kizomba, new modern dance. So William is willing to pay $8 for tango and just $2 for kizomba lesson. And then we also have Mari. She is another customer and another type of customer, and willing to pay $10 for tango and more than William, for example. And Mari likes much more like to dance tango than kizomba. If we add both tango and kizomba, value which we give us bundle price of the $10 for William and $11.5 for the Mari. We assume that the marginal cost is 0, so that the dancing school provides the lessons or the classes at the marginal cost of 0. One thing we note that tango price is about $10, and there will be no sales, right? If the kizomba price is about $2 a month, likewise we will not gonna have any sales. So our revenue from tango will be $16 and revenue from the kizomba will be $3 per month. So total revenue from the single pricing strategy with no bundle is $19. So let's say how bundling in this case make the dance school better off. The optimal pricing for the bundle would be $10. Noticeably that if you set a price $11.50, only Mari would buy the bundle, and so potentially losing the sales to William. At the price of 10, both William and Mari buys the bundle, which in turns total revenue gonna be $20, which is of course dollar higher than the single pricing strategy. So bundling yield higher profit than separate pricing. In practice, bundling happen all the time. In car purchasing, when you are going to buy a car, they have different versions of the same car, and each version is, first of all, there is a basic version, there is a luxury version, and there is a sports version, and they have some additional things that they bundle things together, and they seems irrelevant. So they bundle together park assistant and system that will help you to park the car with the leather interior, and similarly something that appeals to two different types of consumers. Two different products, park assistants, what you want if you are more practical consumers, leather seats if you are more of the luxury consumer, and usually those two types, they do not coincide with the most of the things, right? Vacation travel, that is another example. We usually see websites that are hotels tickets, and combined with the hotels, they try to convince you bundle different things together. Cable television, buy cable television, and you see the bundle supports, and that most likely to have the audience in the men fashion channels, that are most likely to have audience with the target women. So the target audience, because they are different audience, and this is makes bundling more make sense, I think, because you have negative correlation in the demand between sports and fashions, our hotel and the airfare, and the parking assistance, and leather seats. So this is something that shows you that bundle in practice does seems make a difference, and applied in various industries very often.